Is the US government now policing thoughts? What if your social media posts could determine your future? The US is now scrutinizing immigrants' social media for anti-Semitic activity, and the stakes are incredibly high. Could this be a slippery slope toward restricting free speech? The data is alarming. Internal reports show a significant rise in application denials based on social media activity, and the trend is accelerating. All right, let's get straight to the point. The U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, or USCIS, announced a policy change. They will now monitor the social media accounts of individuals applying for immigration benefits. This includes people seeking permanent residency, foreign students, and those connected to educational institutions. The goal? To identify and deny entry to individuals who express support for anti-Semitic ideologies or engage in anti-Semitic activities. This policy is effective immediately. The Department of Homeland Security, or DHS, is backing this move, stating that it's crucial to protect the U.S. from extremist threats. They specifically mention groups like Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. Anyone affiliated with these groups, or expressing support for their ideologies, could be barred from entering or remaining in the U.S. Now, let's dig a little deeper. This isn't just about surface-level checks. USCIS is employing sophisticated algorithms to analyze social media content. Think about it. They're using natural language processing, or NLP, to detect hate speech and extremist rhetoric. They're also leveraging sentiment analysis to gauge the emotional tone of posts and identify potential threats. And, crucially, they're using network analysis to map connections between individuals and suspected terrorist organizations. This means they're not just looking at what you say, but also who you're connected to. This policy is directly linked to executive orders aimed at combating anti-Semitism and foreign terrorist threats. It's also a response to the rise in anti-Semitic incidents, particularly after the October 2023 Hamas attack. But here's the critical point. Determining what constitutes anti-Semitic activity is highly subjective. As explored in the research paper Defining Anti-Semitism, a contemporary challenge by Lipstadt, 2019, the lack of a universally agreed-upon definition creates a risk of misinterpretation and bias. This raises serious concerns about the potential for misclassification and unfair targeting. This is where things get really controversial. On one side, you have the argument that this policy is essential for national security. Proponents say that the government has a right, and even a responsibility, to protect its citizens from individuals who pose a threat. They argue that monitoring social media is a necessary tool for identifying potential terrorists and preventing attacks. Tricia McLaughlin, the DHS Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs, put it bluntly, there is no room in the United States for the rest of the world's terrorist sympathizers. But on the other side, you have concerns about free speech and privacy. Critics argue that this policy violates the First Amendment and unfairly targets immigrants based on their political views. They point out that anti-Semitism can be a broad and vaguely defined term, and that legitimate criticism of Israeli government policies could be misconstrued as hate speech. The ACLU of Texas called the policy a dangerous attempt to chill protected expression. A key question is, how can we balance national security with the fundamental rights of individuals? One proposed solution is to implement strict oversight and transparency measures. Independent audits of the social media screening process could help ensure that it's being applied fairly and consistently. Another approach is to use a reasonableness standard, requiring a clear and convincing link between social media activity and a credible threat before denying an immigration application. But even with these safeguards, the potential for abuse remains a serious concern. The response to this policy has been sharply divided. Groups like the Zionist Organization of America have praised the move, arguing that it's a necessary step to protect the Jewish community from anti-Semitic threats. They believe that anyone who supports terrorism or promotes hate speech should be denied entry into the U.S. On the other hand, organizations like the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR, have condemned the policy, calling it a witch hunt that unfairly targets immigrants and chills free speech. They argue that the government is using anti-Semitism as a pretext to suppress dissent and silence criticism of Israeli policies. Even some pro-Israel groups, like J Street, have expressed reservations, warning that the policy could backfire and undermine the fight against genuine anti-Semitism. They argue that attacking free speech rights is not the way to make Jewish Americans safer. So, what does all of this mean for the future? This policy marks a significant shift in U.S. immigration enforcement, with digital surveillance playing an increasingly prominent role. It raises fundamental questions about the balance between national security, free speech, and privacy rights. We can expect legal challenges to this policy, and the courts will likely be asked to weigh in on its constitutionality. The long-term impact on immigration patterns and the perception of the U.S. as a welcoming country remains to be seen. Will other countries adopt similar policies? Will this lead to a global trend of increased social media surveillance? The answers to these questions will shape the future of immigration and the relationship between technology, security, and individual liberties. What do you think? Is this a necessary step to protect national security or a dangerous erosion of free speech? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more in-depth analysis of the latest tech and policy developments. Stay informed, stay engaged, and stay critical.